Russian code in your apps, Microsoft Office vulnerabilities, and CarPlay. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this MacVoices Live panel starts this part of the discussion looking at the report that there is Russian code running in not only Army apps, U.S. Army apps, but also maybe in your apps. Then we move on to a discussion of vulnerabilities in Microsoft Office and why you should be aware of them, and more. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. The next one, I'm going to throw up Jeff Butts. There's an article by Jeff on the Mac Observer, but you also probably have seen it around other places, where a U.S. Army iOS app was found to contain code developed in Russia. And then Jim was kind enough to give us an article, and I will throw that in here as soon as I can find it, following up on that about, I guess, was it the it's Pushwoosh that got, I guess, published this statement.
Correct. I found it on their website.
Yeah, they were the ones that were, I guess, the centerpiece of this story. And so Jim, I'm going to ask you from a developer's perspective. I mean, is this something the Army dropped the ball on, or is this completely understandable and we're all running Russian code in our iOS apps?
We probably are all running Russian code. It's not clear if Pushwoosh includes Russian code or not. They're saying, well, we used to have a subcontractor in Russia, but we haven't had them for 3 years. I mean, the Reuters article, which is where Mac Observer got it from, made it sound like the KGB is infiltrating, people's apps, which maybe they are. But
or would want to.
I don't see any evidence of that. I mean, there's programmers in Russia, and until a year ago, Russia was more or less part of the world global economy, and that's a inexpensive place to get developers. Pushwoosh says, well, we're an American company. Here's our Delaware, thing, and yeah, we have all kinds of international, outsourcing that we do, and they listed like 15 countries where they've had work done. Sort of the bigger issue is, so apparently this is a third-party library that other developers can buy.
Access?
Not so much access, but you can say, oh, I want this feature in my app, and I believe this is for push notifications. And so, they've got some system for doing push notifications. And so they're telling developers, don't build your own, and you've got better things to do, just pay us and we'll, and I didn't get into all the details, but there's a lot of stuff like that happens into apps where app companies will be like, oh yeah, let's, and some of it's paid. This apparently is a paid thing. And then there's a lot of open source stuff too. I had assumed originally that that's what they were talking about, but apparently not in this case. But I'm sure there's lots of open source code that who knows where it comes from, and and also what does that mean? Like, oh, well, somebody in Russia wrote these 3 lines of code, or they wrote 500 lines. Nobody's tracking that. And on the server side, a big thing on the server is Node.js, which is the system that's all built on all kinds of interdependencies. And one of the things about that is nobody's vetting that. And, people build in these server apps that have hundreds of dependencies, and this depends on this, depends on this. And people have no idea what's running on their server. And so far, it hasn't caused, as far as we know, a huge disaster, but it just seems like it's something that's, at some point there's going to be a story of some huge, maybe breach or a, failure or something, because there was an incident a couple of years ago, and maybe longer than that now, where the person who had originally written some low-level component that is used by tens of thousands, at least, of servers. And the person that wrote it, they wrote it 10 years ago or something and moved on and just sort of, abandoned it. But all these, it's used everywhere. And somebody else came along and took it over and put something malicious in it. And then the way that node system is set up, they just, pushed that up, and all of a sudden it was incorporated in thousands of servers, and, was found out after the fact. So we have kind of a fragile system that everybody just wants to ignore because it's so convenient. So I'm not too sure about this particular story. It's kind of weirdly sourced. So, it doesn't sound like, certainly the story makes it sound like the U.S. Army was targeted by Russians, and I don't think the details of the story could possibly bear that out.
No, they don't.
Okay, so I when I looked at this, I saw this. I mean, I could understand why it would be a concern, especially the way the world has gone in the last year or so. But at the same time, I use a number of different third-party plugins to produce the show. Okay, any of those could be running Russian code. Oh my God, I have no idea where they came from. I know I bought them in good faith, and they do what I think they should do. And I don't know if they're doing something in the background. I'm not aware of it. David, I'm sure you've probably had experience with PowerPoint files that have malware embedded and are part of the deal. And so, was it Handbrake a while back?
PowerPoint files can have code in them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they can have all kinds of things in them.
Oh, yeah.
Macros.
Yeah.
I mean, do we block
PowerPoint, Word, and Excel?
Yeah,
Oh,
But
Excel.
Keynote doesn't have that, right?
You can attach all kinds of crazy crap to Keynote files.
Yeah, you can put JavaScript in Keynote files now.
Mm-hmm.
And do what with it?
Well, I guess that depends on how clever you are.
I mean, if you run it, if it's like an access anything outside, it puts up all these annoying, do you really want to do this? Kind of makes it almost useless to use for real things.
But that's not going to stop people with nefarious intent.
Slow them down. It'll stop them from pawning me.
Well, yeah, but you're not people.
Yeah, well, that's all I care
you.
about.
I mean,
That's all I care about.
well, David and I are in a different boat on the other side of the water, waving at you.
No.
As we explain to end users that you don't just click OK on things.
It's not gonna hit. Oh well. Yeah. Well,
but I mean, maybe.
But,
yeah, I mean, David, maybe that's the discussion we need to have, because maybe folks aren't aware that PowerPoint is a big deal when it comes to a malware delivery system.
Well, Office files, it doesn't have to be PowerPoint. Yeah, because lots of people do lots of work with Microsoft apps and expect to get a Word file attachment, an Excel file attachment, and open it up and don't think twice because it says it's Excel. And the next thing you know, I'm getting an alert from telemetry and sending an email as they're, they get an email from me as they're calling me going, all I did was open this Excel file and like everything's weird now. And yeah, so
Don't open attachments.
By the way, Kelly posted a link to an xkcd comment, which was in my head as I was making my comments, but I in no way could come up with the actual URL in that time frame. So kudos, Kelly, and Chuck. You might want to copy that over into the YouTube link, because that is a classic xkcd about that situation.
It's in my URL history in my browser, because there are like 3 of them at xkcd that I reference regularly for people, and this is one.
And there is an attachment.
It is one that I see over and over and over and over.
Say again, Guy.
Sorry.
Yeah, there is an attachment with it, but don't worry about it. It's totally safe.
That's right.
At some point, I would really like, Chuck, if we can have like a basic sort of office security discussion, because like my standpoint, because I give presentations to clients regularly about security, and my baseline that I give everybody is be 10% skeptical of every single message. So if I'm talking to David and I go, David, I have this PDF I'm going to send you that is CarPlay head, this list of CarPlay head units that I'm looking at. And then later, David gets an email that has my name on it and my email address. And it says, here's that list I was going to send you. And there's a PDF attached called CarPlay head units for Kelly. At that point, he should be 10% skeptical. It should only go up from there. So if I told him it was coming and it all looks legit and he looks at it, he should still be like, okay, maybe. So yeah, it's very much, I like to use Mad Eye Moody as a good example here from Harry Potter. Constant vigilance. Yeah.
Constant vigilance.
Yeah.
That's
I try to keep
true.
my slides entertaining, because security can be boring and intimidating. And to go back to our earlier topic, it is not sexy in any way. I don't care who you get to give the presentation. Jason Momoa up there with no shirt on is not going to make people interested in security any more than having me do it.
But they'll
With the
stay
shirt
through
on.
the presentation.
Well, I mean, yeah. So like it's never fun. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not interesting. And so I try to make sure that my virus-free slides are interesting. And so I use examples like Mad Eye Moody, and passwords are like underpants. You should not reuse them, and you should not be sharing them with other people. That kind of stuff. So
Kelly, you left out.
Wait, I'm not supposed to share my underpants?
Here we go.
Once again, you've been going to the wrong parties.
Here we go.
it's a general rule.
Yeah.
There are always asterisks. You know that.
But
Jeff,
Kelly,
you of all people know that.
Kelly, you left out
Oh,
one
yes.
important point about security, and that is it's inconvenient. And
Oh no, I know that.
And I know you know that, but I feel like that is the biggest reason that people don't pay attention to it, because or don't do the things they should do.
Well, I think the biggest reason is because if anyone has ever tried to ask somebody about security, a lot of times you get an answer of like, or somebody starts rattling off what it is they actually know about security, which isn't necessarily the level you're at. They're talking up here and you're down here. I'm just trying to get you to tell me why I should have 2-factor, or what it is, and somebody's over here talking about all kinds of, malware and things that you need to worry about. And so it's hard to be approachable. And when you don't know what you don't know, it's really hard to start and feel like you're even asking the right questions. So that's part of what my talk has in it, because the weakest link is always people, and there's a trade-off. If you have an email address, you're going to have to connect to a network to get that email. So you are introducing a certain amount of risk. Just like every time you get in the car, there's a certain amount of risk. Every time you stay in bed, there's a certain amount of risk. Every time you don't stay in bed, certain amount of risk. And you just have to figure out where those trade-offs can be made. So,
yeah.
Apparently, if you're a Twitter user, then you should not have 2-factor authentication.
SMS 2-factor. The other one works. Because mine still
For
works.
now.
I use an app. Well, yeah,
For
I
now.
use an app, but yeah.
Well,
He hasn't gotten to that one yet.
What did I miss, Jim?
Elon's like turning things off. Like, we don't need these microservices.
He's running
And-
around chewing on the power cables, and
and
things are breaking. and
so
nobody can figure
apparently
out what
they
went wrong.
turned off the thing for two-factor. So if you have a two-factor authentication SMS for your Twitter account, you can't log on anymore
Oh, that's exciting.
Like
because they
half
won't
of
send
it.
you the message.
It's a 2-part process, and the part that triggers what sends you the SMS is one of the things that got turned off.
Elon says that's turned back on, but
And I
there's
totally
a track
believe
record
him.
here. So yeah,
I missed that one. I didn't. I guess I was busy doing something
this
else.
stuff is just flying by, and it's
You can't keep up with all of it, or you
I
don't
think,
want to. You wouldn't have a job.
we need a twit voices.
No, please no.
It's
there's no
full-time.
point in spinning that one up because my guess is that before Christmas, going to twitter.com will give you a 404. So we just there won't
How
be a
about
show
by
anymore.
Thursday?
I was gonna
by
say, like,
Thursday.
Thanksgiving might be a much more realistic assessment there.
Yeah.
Whether or
good
not it
point.
continues to move to Atlanta till Christmas time is a different story.
To Atlanta.
404 is the Atlanta area code.
Oh,
That used to be an old web term for like when your website fell over and somebody tried to load it and it would 404.
Yeah, it went to
no, I know what
my
404
website
is,
went to Atlanta.
but it doesn't have anything to do with it. I've never heard anybody say that.
Once again, Jim,
Again,
you've
you're
been
going
to
to
the
the wrong
parties.
parties.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I've been in the same party with you in that case because I'd never heard that phrase.
I just smile and nod my head.
Says the man with a cat in his lap.
Yes. Was not my idea.
And the cat heard me and shook its head.
It was the
Okay.
cat's idea. We all know that.
Yeah. Kelly, you wanted to bring up something you're in the market for.
Yes. It has come to my attention that the 2012 Outback, which I currently drive, I am apparently going to continue to drive until the wheels fall off. And that means instead of just continuing to hold out as if there may be a different automobile in my future, maybe I should spend a little money on a third-party CarPlay unit. And so I wanted to take a poll and see if anybody here had done that. And if there's one you like or do not, or anything along those lines, because I'm interested.
Where
And
are
I
you
also would
getting
like
it
to
through?
not spend a shocking amount of money. Like, I do not want there to be a comma in the price. Let's put it that way.
You can get
Oh.
you can get CarPlay units for $300 and less now.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, go to crutchfield.com.
You just
Well, yeah.
You took
you
the
just read
words
the
right out of my mouth.
I just went to that site.
So, Kelly, the reason you want to go to
Yes.
Crutchfield is because they handhold you through the process.
Yep.
Okay.
You say, "Here's what kind of car I have,
The
what
year.
year it is," and then
Options.
and then they say, "Okay, so here are the 5 CarPlay heads that will work in your car, and here's the adapter harness you need so that all the features that are already in your car continue to work. Like if there's
Okay.
buttons on the steering wheel and stuff."
Oh, there are buttons on the steering wheel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what finish bezel do you need to go with the head unit so it fits
Mhm.
and looks good in your dash? And then it's like, okay, and for like $600, $500, whatever, you're out the door with the whole package. And when it shows up, you've got everything you need, including the instructions on how to install it in your car.
And then you go someplace where they actually know what they're doing and have them do it for you.
Yes.
That was my next question is, does
Yes.
Crutchfield
Or-
also come with, you call this is who you call to come do it when it gets there?
No, it doesn't come with that. But
No.
No.
I mean, everything you need to have someone install this, it's right
Sometimes
there. in the
sometimes
box.
even the tools.
Oh.
Or
Some of the
counter
specialty
proposal,
tools.
you publish video of Mr. Kelly swearing on YouTube.
Yeah. Webb in the chat room says he has the Alpine, what is it? ILX F309 is the one he purchased.
Okay.
I
let me-
just searched it for you, and
Did you
Alpine
like
is good. That makes me good
my
stuff.
10 seconds of searching for what fits in the Subaru it's a 2-din, so it's like double height.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's no backup camera or infotainment system or any of that kind of stuff. It's not fancy. There are steering wheel buttons and that's it. So I don't have to worry about hooking up a bunch of other fiddly stuff. At least not that came with the car.
So the adapter harness that you would buy for your car won't have as many wires as the one that I will have to buy when I get one for my Prius.
All right.
The Alpines looks. I'm looking. I'm trying to find the one web here, but it looks like I'm not sure how old that is. Web. That may be a little bit older because they're now a bunch of similar names. Just the numbers are a little higher.
And if anyone else in the chat has purchased one and can tell me if they like it or do not, I would like to know that too.
Yeah. I know for a while back, I had Pioneers and they were always very, very good to me.
Yeah. I had a Pioneer. The first one I installed was a Pioneer. And then I think I had another Pioneer and like a couple of Alpines through the years as I was doing them. Like that first Pioneer was a tape deck. So
yeah, most of the things. It's interesting here. There are only a couple names that I don't recognize. Otherwise, maybe just the world has shaken them all out. And
I just put a link in over at YouTube for a JVC unit that's like $300.
Yeah, I see that one there too.
Yeah.
AWM 56 PT.
Guy, I don't think it went in the chat. Throw it into our private and I'll copy it over.
I have tried to put links in our chat before, and it has been not a happy experience. It won't let me do it. I cannot put a link in our chat.
So
Yep.
There's the JVC.
Okay.
Is everything a DVD player and a touchscreen now? Because every one of these that I'm looking at on the Crutchfield site says DVD receiver on it.
Do you need a CD player or a DVD player?
I do not need a DVD player. There is a CD player in it now that I don't really use. So.
Okay, well then just get one that doesn't have it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Or it may be that I don't know. That may limit her options.
Not necessarily. Because unless you're like an audiophile, you're not listening to CDs anymore. You're not listening to DVDs. All you're doing is bringing it up in through whatever music service that you're subscribed to and playing it there, or playing it through the stuff that you've already purchased that you have in Apple Music or one of the other services. So having a CD player with a custom built playlist and all the rest of that is just not a thing anymore for 99% of the people out there.
I'm reasonably certain there is a CD in the CD player, and it's a CD I made full of MP3s because the CD player will read it.
This MacVoices panel is back in the final edition of this MacVoices live discussion to finish up the conversation about CarPlay and the options for adding it aftermarket in your car, or in Jeff's car, or in Kelly's car, in any car. That's next time on MacVoices. I hope you'll join us. Until then, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.